The presence of highly heated land surfaces also hinders rainfall, and as a result, there are large areas with dry climates far from the sea. In general, climatic contrasts arise from differences in the amount of rain that falls in each season, as well as the temperature of the land surface. However, even in areas with relatively warm climates, such as near the equator and in regions with cold climates, there are contrasting climates. There are three major types of climate when describing dry zones, namely those where rainfall is usually less than 250 mm per 10 years, such as near the equator. These low rainfall levels are due to a combination of factors such as lack of vegetation, high altitude and high temperatures. It is largely due to climate change, but also to the effects of natural variations in the Earth's atmosphere. Some parts of the Arctic and Antarctic have a dry climate because they are cold, and there is a lack of vegetation, elevation and high temperatures, as well as high levels of carbon dioxide. Besides the drought, a desert climate is characterized by high monthly mean temperatures. However, the daily temperature range is much lower than the annual average temperature in dry climates. If the climate means that annual rainfall per millimeter is less than 5 times the threshold, it is classified as a desert. A precipitation threshold is a constant that represents the distribution of precipitation over the year, and if the average annual precipitation in millimeters is more than 3 times higher than the defined precipitation thresholds, it can be classified as an arid. The semi-arid climate zones are surrounded by desert areas and include parts of Africa, South America, Asia, the Middle East and Africa. The African climate is dominated by dry climates in the southern part of the continent with high monthly average temperatures. The central parts of this continent are wetter, but with lower monthly average temperatures and lower annual mean temperatures. The Mediterranean climate is found in the Mediterranean regions such as Italy, Greece, Spain, Italy and the Middle East. The coastal oceanic climate is found in the Atlantic, Pacific and Gulf of Mexico, as well as in the Indian Ocean. The deserts of the Earth are usually received and are hot and dry all year round, but dry grassland is found in the center of the continent, where temperature fluctuations are extreme. This climate is characterized by a narrow temperature range and falls significantly in summer. Unlike Patagonia, it is also normally considered humid in terms of rainfall. The subcategories are based on the season in which precipitation falls, and the sources precipitation that soaks the ground, including rain, snow, sleet and hail. The climate found in the figures below corresponds to the climate of the subcategory El Niño. Intense sunshine, so that the tropics are warm all year round and have an average temperature of at least 18 degrees Celsius every month. Rainfall is plentiful, with more than 59 inches of rainfall each year and average temperatures in the hottest humidity zones above 64 degrees Celsius. This climate zone is so dry because moisture from the air evaporates quickly and there is hardly any precipitation. In this zone, the very cold temperatures sometimes drop to -30 degrees, but in the hottest humidity zones, rainfall is usually only a few centimeters per year. This zone has very low temperatures of -20 degrees Fahrenheit and very high humidity, with only 1.5 inches per decade. An arid or semi-arid climate can occur where warm, humid air is blocked by mountains, such as in the Himalayas, the Middle East, and the Pacific. In some parts of the world, the climate is mainly influenced by the geographical location of a region on a continent. The Mediterranean climate is found in the Middle East, North Africa, South America and the Caribbean. For example, Pakistan's highland climate consists of mild summers and cold winters that absorb an increasing amount of moisture in the air, which has a negative impact on the temperature and humidity of the country, making it impossible to grow vegetation in winter. Summers are often hot and humid, with high temperatures and low humidity, while winters are cold and dry, but summers are hotter and drier. Arid is aimed at drought and is used both for the climate itself and for the terrestrial climate. Coastal climates are also challenging for gardeners, as they have hot and long summers, while coastal dwellers have to cope with salty air and sandy salt soils. The Bedouin are occasionally used to refer to a group of people in the Middle East and North Africa, especially in Iraq and Syria. They represent the majority of the population in the areas they inhabit, which are large, nomadic or former nomads with a lifestyle. The changes brought about by the discovery and development of oil fields in this region have led many of them to live a modern urban lifestyle accompanied by the attraction of material prosperity. Bedouin are the second settlers in northern and central Arabia to claim descendants of Ishmael, known as Qais. They are Arabs and desert nomads who come from and continue to live in the desert regions of the Middle East and North Africa, particularly in Iraq and Syria. Bedouin populations are widespread in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Yemen, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman and Yemen. Most Bedouin are herders who migrate from the desert during the rainy season and move to farmed land. They live in the deserts, feed on rain crops, and inhabit areas that receive less than 5 centimeters of rain a year. Sometimes, they rely on pastures that feed on morning dew instead of rain to provide water for their animals. Traditionally, the Bedouin tribes are classified according to the species that make up their livelihood. Sheep and goat nomads have a small reach, stay in the cultivation areas and stay away from the agricultural and pastoral areas of the desert. The camel nomads occupied a vast area and were organized into 2 groups, the camels and the Bedouin, each with their own language, culture and religion. Since 6000 BC, the southern edge of the arid Syrian steppe has been inhabited by agricultural herdsmen. There are many livestock farming societies that lived in the region at that time, but there is no evidence for the existence of many of them. Assyrian neighbors to the north are characterized by the presence of domesticated camels and the use of camel farming in agriculture. Around 850 BC, a people known as Rab, the ancestors of modern Arabs, established a network of oasis settlements and pastoral camps. The Assyrians called the Bedouin Kedarites or Arabah, a name that is still used for them today. The Bedouin were the descendants of the Nakab, to whom they were referred by the name of their ancient neighbors, the Nubians, in the north. They are a semi-nomadic community that has historically engaged in livestock farming, pastoral and agriculture, as well as fishing, hunting and hunting. Of the 92,000 Bedouin who lived in the Negev in 1947, only 11,500 remain today, according to the Israel Antiquities Authority. Palestinian Arabs identified mainly as Arabs from the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights. In Orientalist historiography, they are called Nej Bedouin, and until recently have remained largely unaffected by changes from outside. The term, Bedouin, has been used for a nomadic way of life since at least the late 19th century, particularly in Egypt, Jordan and Lebanon. In the 1950s and 1960s, Bedouin in the Midwest and Asia began to abandon traditional nomadic life in response to shrinking heat zones and growing populations and settle in cities in Midwest Asia. But recent scientists have challenged the notion that they are petrified as a reflection of an immutable desert culture. Oil-producing Arab states Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates have also pushed most Bedouin to settle. Likewise, their oil production has led most Bedouin to settle. The Arab state that produces oil, the Middle East and North Africa or the Arabian Peninsula. Moroccans speak the Hassaniya dialect, and Levant residents speak Bedawi Arabic. Bedouin speak a dialect similar to that of the people of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq and Yemen. Like other Arabs, Bedouin speak various dialects of Arabic, which belong to the Semitic language group. The other living language of this group is Arabic of the Middle East and North Africa, as well as the languages of Africa and South Asia. In 6000 BC, farmers and shepherds inhabited the southern edge of a dry Syrian steppe. Semitic speakers born in the Middle East and North Africa, Africa and South Asia, as well as in Europe and Asia. In the Middle East, non-Arab speaking nomads who are Bedouin live, and this group generally prefers the name Fedon Bedouanin. The term, Bedouin, is traditionally used to distinguish between those who work on farms, live in cities, or earn a living by raising cattle. Arab culture considers the Bedouin to be ideal Arabs, and since there is no resistance to Bedu Hadar specifically in the Arab cultural tradition, it is questionable whether the non-Arab speaking shepherds of the Middle East should be called Bedouin, or Arab, in general. In many parts of Africa and the Arabian Peninsula, such as Algeria, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Saudi Arabia and Tunisia, there are Bedouin societies that live in the rain, that is, in feed cultivation.